Hello there. Welcome to Talking Balearics here with me, Martin Makepeace, in a very, very beautiful Ibiza today, mate. It's cooled down a bit, to be honest, Rich.
And yeah, the same here, Mark. I'm in Mallorca, Richie Pryor, and we had the very high temperatures and humidity of last week. Had a storm at the weekend, and it sort of cleared the air a little bit. So it's still obviously hot and sunny, but it's more bearable hot and sunny than it was last week. Anyway, let's put it like that.
Absolutely, Rich. Listen, last podcast of July, so we've got August around the corner. How are you feeling, mate? Are you set up for it?
July's flown by. I mean, obviously
really has,
the World Cup,
really
the World Cup at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, we're probably looking at 4 or 5 weeks of busyness, and we'll start to be calming down again.
I can't wait, mate. To be fair,
Me neither.
Listen, I need to feel the till before that, Rich. But I can't wait for it. So August just around the corner, and don't forget next week we've got our solar eclipse special, Rich. I bet you can't wait for that, can you?
Oh, I'll head down ready for that, Mark. I can't wait. I'm doing my work on it already.
Oh, I've done a lot of research on it as well, Rich. The solar eclipse. I'll tell you what. Listen, I've even got a free pair of BP glasses given to me on my last full tank of petrol. Wow. Well, I bought some off Amazon, mate. So I've been a bit of a geek there. So I've got them just in case. So looking forward to it. That's next week. Let's concentrate on this week, Rich. This is obviously Talking Balearics. Myself and Richie here talking about the most amazing islands in the world, the Balearics. What have you got for me this week, Rich?
We got tourism protests, of course, Mark. We had that last weekend.
I thought that might be the case, Rich.
Yeah, unfortunately. But we'll talk about that, a few views on that. Airport strikes. There are some strikes coming up next week at Palma Airport. I don't know if it's affected Ibiza, but it's affecting Mallorca, definitely. Some pointers towards, I know we're going to talk about the Eclipse next week, but there are some pointers towards the Eclipse.
Okay.
That sort of come out already that,
slow build up. You're not going to
peak too early. No,
so you're not going to pop your cork too early, mate, eh?
No. That has been known in the past, but
Well, it wouldn't be the first time, Rich.
Training sessions and all that.
Won't be the last.
Yeah. And a little bit around Mallorca news.
Oh, that's good. Okay, cool. Rich, got a few things for you this week. I've got quite a lot, actually. We've had a busy news week over here, Rich, to be honest. So I've got quite a lot, but I promise to skip through them quickly. Obviously, I want to touch on the protests because big news all over the Balearics, the Mallorca protests, but I think it will affect Ibiza as well. So I'll touch on that when you do yours. Also, Rich, a bit of a property week because, as you know, I'm a property guy. I run a property company, so I'm always interested. There's been several stories in the news this week about property. So I'm going to put them all into one. I'm going to go through them, which is quite interesting. I know a lot of our listeners love the property because we get a lot of second home people who listen to our podcast as well. There is a bit of a furore about a advertising campaign in London, which has mentioned Ibiza, not in a good way. Probably goes on a little bit from what we said last week about that disco in the airport. It's about the image of Ibiza. So I want to touch on that. And I want to ask you, because obviously you're from afar, and I always like to ask people who aren't involved in the mix of Ibiza. So I'll ask you that. Finally, I'm going to follow up on, remember our club's overcrowding, Rich? We talked about it. It's been online a lot this week, so I'm going to talk about that. And lastly, I want to talk about the famous people in Ibiza this week because we are inundated with famous people this week. So we'll do a bit of paparazzi, Rich.
So last week, Mark, or last Sunday actually, was the tourism protest. Depends who you talk to, how many people were there. The protesters say there was 70,000. The police say there's 25,000. So I'm probably siding on the side of the police normally because the protesters will obviously always bump up their numbers and who was counting, I don't know.
That's some stretch, though, isn't it, from 25 to 75, Rich?
yeah, exactly. And normally the protesters over-egg this.
Yeah,
but
of course.
I would say, look, and I've said this before, we are just under 1 million people here in Mallorca. So if it was 25,000, if it was 70,000, you're looking at 2.5% or 7% of the overall population were protesting about the over-tourism. So it's not, I don't think it's something that everybody not cares about. That's probably not the right word because I think a lot of people do care about it and want to see a solution in a positive way. But there was a few things that came out of this. Obviously, there seems to be a bit of a running battle between some of the protesters and the police. The police were saying that the protesters were attacking tourists, which wouldn't have been a good look. The protesters are then counteracting and say the police don't know what they're talking about. They used over excessive force against us. What happened was at the end of the march that they did, they ended up in a place called Ses Voltas, which is quite near the cathedral. It sort of got into a bit of a bottleneck, and the police had already warned the protesters to say, look, we're only going to allow a certain amount of people in the area for safety reasons. And this is when the kickoff started, apparently. They did apparently go into the night time as well. I saw a few videos online of there was accusations of rubber bullets being used. My understanding is they weren't used on people. They were just used as sort of pointed in the air, as to say, look, we need to clear this area and everything else. So it's all got a bit messy, and I don't like it. And one of the things that sort of come out, or one of the, obviously the protesters saying one thing, the police saying the other. There's investigations going on about excessive use of force by the police. They're saying, obviously, in their defence, that they were jumped upon by a load of protesters. I saw today, funny enough, I was in Palma today. They're basically saying that they're protesting against. They're not really protesting against tourism. They're protesting the fact that obviously the housing is a big problem right now, as we know. We've talked about this before, and affordable housing, etc., etc. But unfortunately, they use it under the tourist banner: less tourism, more life, is their basically thing. And then I see a sticker today: tourists go home, which has obviously come from this particular protest because it was on one of the streets that they walked down. Yeah. So it's a message that I don't think needs to be said. I was sent a couple of articles. I know the Times and the Sunday Times picked up on it. A few of the other papers did as well. Just doesn't give us a good look in a way, really. So I don't know if it's going to be another protest, because the last one was a year ago, so this one was this year. And I would urge the political parties, whoever's in charge, to obviously show what they're doing from a point of view of changing the tourism model. And I will sort of just say to the protesters, well, come up with some ideas, because all they're doing is they're coming up with protest after protest after protest, but not actually coming up with any sort of fluid ideas to actually counteract the problem. It's something that I think is going to run at the minute, Mark.
The optics are terrible, Rich. I've got to tell you, the optics are terrible, because we've all seen the headlines, we've seen the videos, the running battles in the street. I think it's fair to say, after we spoke about the manual that they put out before, that they were looking for trouble, I think, Rich, weren't they?
Well, what happened was
sorry, let me rephrase that. A small minority of the people there were looking for trouble. What
happened was, obviously, yes, there was that document. Then there was a couple of people that were arrested in Santa Maria, a couple of and I don't know if they were teenagers or in their early 20s. It was two girls, actually, where they've been accused of obviously painting graffiti on some of the walls of estate agents or anybody that was involved in tourism. So they got arrested by the Guardia Civil, and they were saying, the people of Santa Maria kicked off and said, well, this is ridiculous. How can they be arrested? A warning would have sufficed. Well, yeah. Not if you're a business owner who's got to get rid of all this paint on his on his wall or whatever, on his windows or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's been daubed in, whatever. It's one thing after another, blame after blame. I blame you, you blame me. We don't seem to get anywhere, and everybody look. And what comes out badly is the island at the end of the day.
Of course it is, and we live off tourism, whether we like it or not. And if we're scaring them away, what's going to happen? Which what I'd like to do is say to our leaders, mainly the Govern Balear, which is the Balearic government, is to come up with a blueprint of how we can improve these situations, because the radicals aren't happy. And I kind of understand some of it. I don't understand all of it, because I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot by blaming the tourists. However, I'd like to see our leaders come up with a blueprint for change, really, because a little bit like the UK is going through at the moment. A lot of our listeners are in the UK. They've now got a new prime minister who seems to be shaking things up a bit, whether you like him or not. And I'd just like to see our leaders maybe come up with a blueprint, because I kind of agree. We can't just keep adding and adding and adding all the time, because we have got a finite amount of space. I don't believe in building more and more houses, because that'll be more and more people and there'll be more and more problems. So we are going to have to come up with a solution sooner or later, or some kind of idea. Because remember about the cars, Rich? 10 years ago, the government was saying to me, oh no, we can't cap cars. It's against the government regulations. It's anti-EU. And now they're capping the cars. So I don't think they can hide behind these excuses anymore. They just have to come up with solutions. I think the party that does it, and they're realistic solution, I know they're not going to please everybody. I think the party who does it will possibly win the next election.
Well, as you know, Mark, there's a problem here in the Balearics that we've got a PSOE-led, we've got a PP-led government in conjunction with Vox, and then obviously we've got a PSOE main government. So we've got two different political parties
and they can't agree on anything, can they?
No, they can't. And
they're mudslinging and they're blaming
problems.
each other. I mean, we probably need a general election in Spain anyway, but that's a whole different story, isn't it? So I think we both know who we'll be voting for, but if we could vote, that is. But just moving on from this, Rich, because this actually segues nicely into my first item, because I want to talk about property, because the radicals of the, what was it, Menos, was it Menos? What was it?
Minister is mass feeder.
Yeah, so less tourists, more life. Yeah, and the organisers of that, they've got some good points there, and I get it. And housing is one of them. I think it's safe to say, Rich, I don't know if it's the same over there where you are in Palma and Mallorca, that I think housing is the biggest challenge we have by far in the Balearics, because people can't afford to live. The prices have gone up so much. Now, there's several reports in the Ibiza press this week on property. And I want to just give you some figures, Rich, because we're talking about rentals. In 2016, so 10 years ago, let's look at the last decade, to rent a two-bedroom apartment in Ibiza will cost you €650. Nowadays, in 2026, 10 years later, you're looking at €1,500 to €1,800 per month. Okay. And if it's a bit bigger, let's say 2,000 a month. And I know several friends of mine have got bigger houses or bigger apartments, and they're paying in excess of €3,000 a month. And we all know that Spanish wages aren't that great, are they? So we've got this conundrum there as well. Also, another little bit of data that's come out this week as well. 1 in 4 homes in Ibiza is unoccupied or second home. Okay, so we've got all these people who can't afford to live, and we've got a quarter of our houses as second homes or unoccupied. Now, listen, I'm in the tourist game. I want to sell houses to people who can afford them. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. What I'm saying is, everywhere you look, there's a juxtaposition. Everywhere you look, there's a contradiction. Everywhere you look, it's forces going against each other. There is no solution to this. What I'm saying is, we are where we are, and somebody's got to try and kind of solve this jigsaw, because at the moment it's just not working, is it? Because we've got people who can't afford to live. I spoke to a drinks company yesterday. Said he can't find any workers, can't find any delivery drivers, can't find anyone who wants to work. So I mean, it really is it's a very strange time that we're living in, Rich. And I also almost feel nostalgic for that 2016, mate, where we could all afford to live and everyone was quite quiet. But now it just seems that nobody's happy about anything. Wages, rentals. Well, it is July, I suppose, so I'm having a bit of a whinge, aren't I? So it's just that contradiction all the time. And maybe that's the Balearics anyway, Rich. Maybe we thrive on contradiction. I don't know. But,
it's very much, it's very much like these protesters that are talking about, unaffordable housing and everything else. They're not really blaming the tourists. They're blaming the fact it's unaffordable housing. Let's face it, probably more than 10 years ago, we're probably maybe looking back about 20 years, that, years ago, what used to happen was properties would be handed down from family through family. So, your grandparents would hand it to your parents would hand it to your children, et cetera, et cetera. What's happened now? Because the prices have gone so through the roof, those grandparents have sold on the property to a foreign investor or whatever. It means that, the actual succession of people being able to go into a property without having to buy it, because they're basically being handed like an inheritance, basically. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
so I would say to those...
Yeah, sorry, mate.
No, I was just going to say, I would say to those protesters, you probably sometimes need to look at your own backyard and just and say, if your grandparents hadn't sold their property to a foreign investor, we might not have been in this position. I understand why they did. Let's put it like this, because if you're offered silly money for your property, you're probably going to take it. Do you know what I mean? And then move yourself off to the mainland because it's cheaper to live on the mainland.
But I mean, it's diluting, isn't it? That thing is diluting all the way through, because as you said, the handing down and the inheritance before used to be quite strong, but now people are like, hold on a minute, if you're going to give me $5 million for this house, I'm going to cash in and see you later. And I don't blame it. Also, Rich, the last bit of property the news that I've got from Ibiza is that the reports this week that again, this is a massive contradiction. We need new houses. Let me rephrase that. There's not enough houses to go around. So what's happened this week is there's a report out saying that in the next the government thing they want to do is cut the urban land by 50%. So they want to half the amount of urban land that you can build on. So, which again, I actually kind of agree with Rich, because I think we need to, you don't want to keep expanding, because you're just going to have an island full of houses, and, where does it all end? So I kind of agree with it, but you can't on the one hand say we need affordable housing and where's the housing? And on the other hand say, well, actually, we're going to cut half the half the building plots on the island. So, we're just in this space at the moment where nobody seems to be able to come up with solutions to the problems. And as again, let's go back to those people on the streets who decide to be a little bit violent as well. What's your solutions, guys? Let us know, because I tell you, if they're good, start a political party and I'll vote for you.
Definitely. Look, I think, Mark, one of the situations is obviously, I think we touched on this before about, the airports are run by a private company. AENA, of course, is a private company.
And I've got no love for them at all, Rich, and you know that. I've worked with them. I've rented places in the airport back in the old travel shop days, and they are terrible to work with, mate. Terrible.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, they're the ones that are obviously investing in their buildings, making them bigger, inviting more airlines to come, and what does that brings more people?
Of course.
So on the one hand, you've got the government saying, well, you're right, we need less people, but you've got a private owned company basically that is encouraging more people to come.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And not just that, Rich, they when they have record arrivals, they put it all over the press,
scream about it
as if it's the best thing ever. So, Ibiza record arrivals on the front of the page, wow, whoa, whoop-de-doo. And then on the second page, riots on the street because there's no housing. And, it's starting to make less sense, Rich. And as I say, I know it's peak season and we're probably in that headspace where we're busy. And, if it was January, we'd be high-fiving, wouldn't we? And, whoopie-doing. But, I think this is the extreme, from the last 2 weeks of July, first 2 weeks of August. I mean, this is the extreme of the extreme and everything is magnified. But as I said, let's look for solutions, not problems.
Now, talking to the airport, next week there's going to be industrial action by a company called Swissport.
Yeah.
And they provide ground handling services at the airport for companies such as TUI, Sunclass, Condor, Air Canada, Etihad, Albastar, TAP, Air Portugal. And according to the unions, they employ around about 600 people, this particular union. And they're saying they're facing precarious employment conditions and is demanding longer contracted hours for staff working fewer than 40 hours a week. It's also calling for negotiations over irregular working patterns, particularly for older employees, and a reduction in overtime and additional hours being worked by part-time staff. So basically, at the moment, it's an indefinite strike. It's going to start next. It's the 4th, which I think is next. Hang on, it must be next Tuesday.
What effect will that have, Rich? Do you think?
Well, people are saying that you don't bring suitcases because there's not going to be anybody to take your suitcase off the plane. I'm not quite sure how this is going to work. Normally, in these cases, Mark, something gets agreed last minute.
Yeah, last minute. Yeah,
and
they're doing it in the busy week, the busiest week of the season, aren't they?
One of them, yes, of course, the first week of August. So it's not good.
August, yeah.
So they're saying just bring your hand luggage. Obviously, you're actually bringing it on yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I would keep an eye on the press. That's what they're saying right now. Don't bring any large cases because there could be the opportunity that it actually won't reach you at your hotel.
Okay, so as I was saying, it's July and everyone's in a bit of a funk, aren't they?
Yeah,
Let's face it.
Totally.
How are you in a bit of a funk, Richard, or are you okay?
No, I'm fine, Mark. I'm
relaxed.
I'm totally chilled. Have you lost
your razor as well while you're at it?
Listen, I'm getting ready for Christmas, Mark. I'm thinking that there's not much work around in Christmas. I could actually do a good job for someone.
I think you're very handsome with that big beard there, Rich. Big beard. Rich, remember
I've got the belly for it.
Well, I wasn't going to say that. Rich.
I gave you that one.
You did, yeah. Listen, slam dunk there by you.
There you go.
Remember last week, Rich, when we spoke about the duty-free shop, the discount duty-free shop? There's been a bit of a strange one, mate, because the head of the nightlife organisation, Ibiza, has now accused the airport operator AENA of running a discotheque in the airport and asking them to show their licenses. So that one's just a bit of a strange one there. It really is a bit of a back and forth. But rather than talk about that, remember we said it was a really good question. Who controls the image of Ibiza? Right. And it's all about image. And I had one of our listeners sent me a big email, which I won't go into, about really ranting off about this because, about the image after we spoke about that, because they were saying, they're worried more about the image than they are about housing and about hospitals and about things like that. So I won't go into that today. But another thing's come up, Rich, because an advertising campaign on the London Underground has got the Ibiza government very upset. Because the poster reads, it's a poster. I think I posted it on our socials this week. I don't know if you saw it, Rich. The poster reads, it's about animal cruelty, specifically to chickens, and it basically says, your chickens had more drugs than a hen do in Ibiza, right? So, it's part of an animal welfare campaign highlighting the overuse of antibiotics in factory farming, basically. And that's a punchline. The Ibiza government said, hold on a minute, that's the old Ibiza, this is the new Ibiza. But Rich, is it really? I mean, is it worth getting your knickers in a twist about this, or just laughing it off? And two, is it a hill to die on, Rich? I really don't know, because saying that drugs aren't in Ibiza is like saying, casinos aren't in Las Vegas. So I don't think it's a hill to die on, but I think we've got to a stage now where the authorities in Ibiza, they've gone so mad about the image of the island. I think they're just losing a little bit of the plot, Rich, because at the end of the day, we all know what happens. Listen, Ibiza made its name as a liberal society where things were accepted more so than anywhere else. And to die on this hill and going out and saying this is disgusting, again, the Ibiza government. So week one, they've complained about a disco in the airport, saying it gives the wrong impression when people go. And week two, they're saying you can't say that there's drugs in Ibiza. Rich, where are we at with this? It's almost getting beyond ludicrous, really, as well. So, at the end of the day, who controls the narrative here? They're trying to control it, but I just don't think it's a hill that they want to die on.
No, and I think obviously it's a very what's the word? It's a subject which people don't want to talk about, but it's one of those things that you know it's there.
Yeah,
but you probably don't want to bring it out into the open and talk about it.
It's not just Ibiza, Rich. It's everywhere.
Well, no, yeah, exactly.
There's that thing now in the UK where they're saying, it's not drunk driving anymore, it's drug driving, and got these things where in the pubs they're not drinking anymore. In the pubs they're doing things in the toilets they shouldn't be doing. So also, Rich, the campaign has had so much publicity. It's exactly what they wanted, isn't it? No one would usually look at a dead chicken on a underground poster, but because the Ibiza government, they've just thrown a load of fuel on the fire, and they've got the actual publicity that they wanted as well. So at the end of the day, I just think that the Ibiza government want to choose their battles a little bit more wisely, because I just don't think this is worth the effort, really, as well. And also, what are we in Ibiza? We are an island full of superclubs, and superclubs bring something with it. So just smile about it, be thankful for what we've got, and let's move on.
I know we're going to talk about the Eclipse next week, but there's just a couple of things that have come up in the...
You couldn't help yourself, Rich, could you? You couldn't help yourself.
No.
What's the buzz like, mate? Because I'll tell you something, I've had a few phone calls this week. People are going a bit giddy, aren't they, about it?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, even my wife last night was going on about. She said we were having dinner on Magaluf Beach. Actually, she said, "Wait a minute." She said, "The moon's over there. It's going to be right around the other side in a couple of weeks' time." I said, "Well, I'm sure it's going to be there." Do you know what I mean? It's not as if it's not going to be. People are going to, get ripped off because the fact that this moon's not in the right
listen,
place.
I think we should call off the solar eclipse because Rachel Pryor says it's not happening. Let's get that on the front of the page.
Yeah.
Our Pryor says it's not happening, the eclipse. So go on, mate. Hit me up with these facts then, mate. Come on.
Yeah, no, it's just a couple of things. Obviously, you need to be careful where you go watch these things, because obviously, there are only certain places that you will be able to see the eclipse. So be sure that anywhere you're actually going to, one, you can get there, because I don't know if it's like in Ibiza, but they're doing a lot of road closures here, Mark. And they're also closing off a lot of places. So, for instance, where I am, I live near a really good tourist spot called Malgratz, and they're closing Malgratz. You're not going to be able to go down to Malgratz and watch it which would have been a lovely place to go and watch, to be honest with you. But they've opened up Santa Ponsa Beach, and they said Santa Ponsa Beach is going to be somewhere where you can use. We are literally, where I live, we can actually see it from where we are. So we're actually going to stay here where we are. But there will be road closures. Quite a lot of, I think, restaurants and bars and cafes are worried that people won't be able to get, particularly for restaurants, won't be able to get to their reservations on time for a restaurant reservation. And the other thing was just be careful on if you're actually going on a boat, that that your boat has a charter license, of course, because that's what you need in order to go out on a boat, and make sure that you're not over-egging the number of people on your boat. Because
I know. I have a few phone calls asking people if they can use my boat, and I'm saying no. I'll probably be on it anyway. So
Yeah. So just be a bit careful, because there obviously will be. They've called the pirate police, I think, looking out for people that are doing things out on the sea that shouldn't be. Because obviously, in reality, you're not going to have a traffic jam on the sea. I mean, there's going to be lots of boats, I'm sure, but you're not going to have a traffic jam on the sea, are you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to close the sea down. So there's probably, possibly be even more boats out there than there are cars on the roads.
I think it'll be chaos on the seas, mate. I really do. I think it's going to be. Luckily enough, I've got a sunset view on my balcony, so I'm probably going to just stay in the house.
We're not going anywhere.
I think it's easier, Rich, just if you stay low, because it's going to be chaos. I just saw on one of my WhatsApp groups, the local government have said plans to be announced shortly. So that'll be road closures, and that'll be suggested places to actually watch it. So I mean, I'm looking forward to doing the solar eclipse next week, the special, because we've not done it before. So I mean, I'm not sure how long it's going to last for, mate, but I'm sure we'll.
We've got an expert. Is she coming?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying my hardest, mate, to find an expert. Listen, is anyone out there that knows an astronomy?
Well, my missus is an expert now. She's just there you go. She get her on. She knows that the moon is in the wrong position right now. So
get Mrs. Pryor on. She sounds like she knows a lot more. But then again, she's your wife.
She's giving me daggers. You're looking at me now, giving me daggers. So it's not going to happen.
No. So this is a call. I must have emailed about 10 different specialists, and not one person's replied to me yet, Rich. So
really,
we're hoping to get a specialist on. So if you are a solar eclipse or astronomy, if you like astrology, don't worry, by the way, because astrology is a whole different thing. But if you like astronomy, then give us a shout, because we want an expert, and we want the facts, don't we? And we want a little bit of we want a bit of how can we say, geekery, don't we? Really? So
yes, totally.
We want a bit of cool geekery as well. Richard, I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago, I talked about overcrowding in clubs.
Yeah.
And it's come to my attention again. I've got taxi driver friends, and they're always saying to me that the one complaint they hear is the clubs are too busy. Now, there's one club in particular, and it's Pasha, and it's Marco Corolla in Pasha, and it's on a Friday night in Ibiza. It's obviously an amazing night, because otherwise, why would it be so popular? But there's two things, Rich. They do a fluid pricing policy. Okay. They do releases of tickets. So the first tickets maybe go for 70, 80 euros. Second ones go for 100, etc. The last batch of tickets go for 300 euros each, Rich, right? This is just general admittance, by the way. This isn't, or general admission, should we say. It's not anything special, no VIP balcony or anything like that. And it's so popular that I've just heard it from several, and it's been trending online this week as well. It's so busy in there. People can't move. I'm not saying anything bad about the people who are doing it. I'm just thinking it's time to actually name and shame and say, listen, we're going to call it out for what it is, because apparently you cannot move in there. And I mean, the second you get through the door, you are shoulder to shoulder, unsafe. If they're in an event of a fire, you're in real trouble. You're in real trouble as well. So I don't want to be Mr. Negative at all. You know, I love Ibiza. I love the clubs, what they do to it. But maybe it's the wrong venue to hold this in, because Pasha is not the biggest venue in the world. And I just think we have to call it out, because if, God forbid, if there is a problem in there, then it will be a big problem as well. So, you know, I've heard it several times this week, and I just think, you know, put your big boy pants on. And whatever your capacity is, put your capacity in. But for sure, they're putting more people in there because of the churn, you know, the churn of the people in and out as well. So, you know, I just think we need to be very, very careful.
A little bit of Real Mallorca news, Mark. We are playing Paris Saint-Germain next week, next Wednesday, actually, in a friendly game. It's in relation to, we sold Kangin Lee to them a couple of years ago, and one of the stipulations, could we do a friendly game against them? Now, obviously, we're not going to be seeing the likes of Barcola and all those, because they're all off on holidays right now, unfortunately. So it'll be the second string, but even their second string is pretty good. So that's a bit of a date for your diary if you want to go and see a football match next week.
I'm surprised it's not going to Girona this Saturday, Rich.
Well, weirdly enough, Julian did message me actually to ask me if I'm going, and
that would be a good away day. That would, Arsenal versus Girona away.
Yeah. But the thing is that I am likewise. You know, my team, the Arsenal, won't be fielding half the team because they're all on holiday. But also, my son has a game on Sunday, so I would have probably had to stay over in Girona overnight, and so I'm not quite sure if I'd have got back But my son was met Jack Grealish today.
Saw
actually.
that. Saw the picky. Yeah, looked good.
Yeah,
I like Grealish. He's a real people's person, isn't he?
Yeah, he was really nice. He did photos with all the boys. He's doing a bit of training here. He's not gone on Manchester City's tour apparently.
Yeah,
he's coming back from injury, so he's doing his training here. So
I bet he is. I bet he's doing plenty of training in Mallorca.
Yeah. So I've heard.
Likes to drink that lad, allegedly. Talking of footballers,
So
Rich. Talking of footballers, obviously Spain won the World Cup, last week, which we covered last week. So pleased to say that obviously where they're going to choose to go on holiday after winning the World Cup, where they're going to go, of course they're going to come to the best island in the world. Of course they're going to come to Ibiza. So Lamine Yamal was here. I saw them on the video. They're getting applauded in Leo, in Ibiza town. Also, Ferran Torres looks like he's having a great time over here, Rich. He's really, he's loving life, isn't he? Let's face it. He scored the winning goal in the World Cup final, and he's been everywhere. And he's got Marcus Llorente with him, and also Mikel Oyarzabal is with them as well. So
it's not easy for you to say.
Yeah, no, it's easy for you to say though, isn't it? So they've been loving life over here. But the big one, mate, for us, Bex is here as well. David Beckham is around with his wife. And a great picture. In fact, I spoke to Javi from Mambo, Javi who runs Cafe Mambo, or owns Cafe Mambo, and he was showing me the picture because Beckham was in Casamaca, which is a real upmarket restaurant owned by the Mambo Group, and he was there. And he went to they asked him if he could go into the kitchen, and Beckham went into the kitchen and took a picture with all the kitchen staff, and which I thought was a really nice touch as well. And I was with him, mate, Michael Jordan, which I think he's in Mallorca now, by the way, Michael Jordan.
No, it was last week. He was
it last week? Yeah,
and then he went over to Ibiza.
Came to Ibiza as well. Yeah, so there, and I think Rod Stewart was in Ibiza and Mallorca as well this last couple of weeks as well. So yeah,
he was.
Ricky Martin. So
he's been sailing in Cool Smart.
Did you see Did you see? No, I've got it, mate. Don't worry. I just wasn't going to laugh at it, mate. To be honest. Did you see the flag on his boat? That was great, mate. He had his big Celtic flag on his boat.
Did he?
Yeah,
that's like
it was good as well. So it's got. Listen, regardless of all that trouble we spoke at the start of the podcast, it's important to recognise that the Balearics really are up there with some of the best places in the world, and it just shows you when you've got people of that calibre coming over, Rich, and choosing to come to Ibiza and Mallorca and the rest of the Balearics, you're not going far wrong, are you?
Totally.
Are we done?
We're done, Mark.
Fantastic, mate. Listen, sorry, we're actually a day late as well. I meant to say that at the start, aren't we? So we're a day late. So sorry to our listeners out there. We're a day late. We just didn't get round to it yesterday because we were both super busy. So we're a day late, but apologise for that. But we'll be back again next Wednesday with our solar eclipse special. Whatever that
might
entails.
Be a short one.
I think so. It might be the world's shortest. I don't know. So even I don't know how that's going to go. But looking forward to it as always. All right, Rich. Listen, have a great week, mate. Always good to speak.
And you, mate. Take care.
Cheers, mate.
Bye-bye.
Make me dance.